Hello, everyone, and welcome to my micro summit, Healing the Wounds and Creating Miracles. And my guest today is Jeff Gargas, who is COO and co-founder of Teach Better Team and a co-author of Teach Better. And he works with educators to increase student engagement and improve student success. Jeff previously owned an online marketing firm where he worked with entrepreneurs and small businesses. He is also a former adjunctive professor at Kent State University and spent 10 plus years in the music industry. Welcome, Jeff.
Thanks for having me, Cindy. Excited to be here. Thank you.
It's my pleasure to have you. And our topic that we will be speaking today is focus on helping others and sales will come. So first of all, I'd like to ask you, how have you and your team built the business you have, and what strategies have you used to build your audience and generate sales?
Great question. So we are firm believers, and we always joke that we live and die by the idea of helping versus selling, and helping first. And it's really that content inc. And the content marketing strategy, where that's how we built everything. We started with just creating content, writing blog posts, creating short videos, creating online, downloadable resources like PDFs and, ebooks and things of that nature. And we've continued that. We then, worked on our content to make sure that we're ranking organically through SEO, targeting, and then also building the brand on and building our strength and our audience on social media and then email marketing. But it all comes back to creating content that that is helpful, that is valuable, that we believe is valuable, that our audience and our community is telling us that is valuable, and constantly putting helping versus first versus putting sales first. And I think that's something that's easier said than done, because for me, I've always said this, when it comes to help versus sell, it can't be a strategy. You can't be doing it because it's a strategy. It's got to be the way that you operate. It has to be the thing that guides everything. And we've left a lot of money on the table in a lot of different instances because it wasn't the right thing to do, because we wanted to help first. When the pandemic hit, we shifted. We shut down anything and everything sales and went 100% help. We didn't go try and squeeze all of our leads out and get everything we could, or go to current clients to try and get stuff because we were worried about revenue. We went right to how do we help? And it's actually come back from where about 6 months ago, I was pretty sure we were going out of business this year. And we actually are now finishing with our best year ever, both in revenue and in profit. So we're set up to have 2021 be an even better year. So I really believe that's because we've constantly focused on helping people versus trying to sell. And what it kind of comes around is that when you do that, it's a longer term game. It takes longer for leads to generate, but when they do, it's much easier. It actually results in a whole lot easier sales, because everyone you talk to is a warm lead. They're already, in your community. They already believe in what you do. They already know that you're an expert or a resource they can go to, and they like you. So they're already ready to write you a check, and they're glad to do it. And it's just a different ballgame, which makes our life so much easier. So it's been a long road and a lot of work to get there. But I really believe it's the best route to go. At least for us, it was.
Yes. Well, Jeff, tell us about your backstory. How did you get into the world of education?
Yeah, it's an interesting one. I never thought I'd be in education. I'm actually a 3-time college dropout. I actually don't have a college degree. I spend my days working with educators and trying to help them educate better. I work. The majority of my work is in the logistics side, the coordination, making sure our business is operating properly, that we're doing what we need to do. We have an amazing team of educators who do the actual training and creating the content and the value and stuff. I run more the business side of things. But getting here was interesting. If you go way back to when I originally graduated high school, I actually enrolled in college first to be a teacher. And went through a semester of learning, of trying to be a teacher. And for me at the time, I wanted to do it because I wanted to coach soccer. And I had a really great professor who I really enjoyed, who gave us his top 10 reasons not to be a teacher. And one of his top 10 reasons was because you want to coach, because then you're getting into it for the wrong reason. And I took that to heart and ended up shifting. I also wasn't mature enough. I struggled with just not just not putting the time in. I wanted to be a rock star. I had a band I was running with and stuff. Eventually created and started my own record label, and ran that for about 5 years, where I worked with artists from around the area. We also put on shows and did things like that. But fast forward, even after the record label was done and going beyond that, one of the guys that I managed in a band, he was a drummer in a band, had become a teacher, and was teaching 7th grade science and struggling, and created something that we now call and train all over the world on, which is called the grid method, which is our framework for utilizing mastery-based, student-paced, student-focused education in any classroom. And it was Chad Ostrowski, my co-founder, and he, at the time, he ended up becoming a teacher, got his master's in education and was teaching, and I was starting and running, trying to build an online marketing firm. So he created this thing that we now call the grid method, and it started to catch on in his area. People were asking questions about it, and he thought, maybe if I throw this up as an ebook, people can go and get the info there, and then I can just help them with follow-up questions. So he came to me about that. And our inner, my quote unquote famous words within our team is that I looked at him, I said, dude, we're not just doing an ebook. So we have to share this with more people. And then that's how we started. We started creating content. We started with an online course, and it's just kind of grown from there. Now we do way, way more than the grid method, but that was sort of the foundational start of it. So it's kind of interesting twist how I, there in the mix there, I taught at Kent State University, teaching a course in the music industry, which is how I was able to pull that off without actually going and having that level of education. But it was these weird connections that Chad and I had that led us back, and I ended up back here, back in the world of education, just not in the role that I initially planned on or thought it was the right move. So it's been a fun journey. It's been an interesting one for me.
Yes. And, you just mentioned a very important word right there, fun. We need to make our journey and our business fun. If we're not having any fun, then we need to change a couple things up. We need to do what we love to do rather than what everybody tried to do, what everybody else is doing. We don't need to reinvent the wheel. We just need to show our true selves.
Yeah, you need to go find what you enjoy doing. That doesn't mean you're going to love it every day. I don't love it every day. It's not fun every day. There are lots of headaches. One thing I always say is the old adage of, find something you love and you'll never work a day in your life, I think is the biggest lie in the world. It's different. Actually, if you love it, you'll probably work harder, longer hours, and more stress than you ever imagined, because you actually love it, because you care about it. So it means something. The difference is all that it's worth it because you enjoy it, because you love it. When you really sit back and analyze it, like, it's stressful. It's a lot of work. I put in late hours. We're building a business. You have to deal with a lot of different things. We wear a lot of different hats, but I love what I do. I enjoy what I do, not just the actions and things I get to do, but also the mission that we're trying to accomplish. And so you got to find something that you can connect to, that you love, either the actual work or the purpose of the work or what you get to do because of the work. You got to find that. I mean, you spend more than half your life at work. You should probably like it a little bit. So.
Yes. Well, here's a very important question, I think. How do you focus on helping when you're worrying about making money?
Yeah, so that's probably the hardest part of that. It really is. You really have to believe in that model, and that's something that was really tough, and has been really tough, especially in the first couple of years for Chad and I. It really was. We were working. I was still running my own business. He was still in the classroom. We were putting in the effort, putting in the time. Where had we just went right to sales and just busting down doors and making phone calls and really pushing it, we might have been able to make those moves, make those leaps out sooner. And honestly, we probably be doing better as far as revenue goes, but I don't think we would enjoy it as much. Because I think one of the things that we love is just the community that we're building with our team, but also just with the people that are in our world that are connected to us through social media or through trainings or through whatever it might be. And so it has to be a belief. You have to believe in it. And I do. And I think that took a little bit to really instill that in Chad, but now he absolutely does. And then you got to surround yourself with people that are going to not only believe in that with you, but also help you stay accountable to that belief, and which then in turn helps you help them stay accountable. And so it's really important to surround yourself with the right people, whether that's in those right people are your team and you have employees and stuff like that, or if they're just the people that you associate with, that you talk to about your business, that they understand that what you're trying to do. So 'cause sometimes you need a little nudge, like, hey, No, remember, we help first, right? Because you can, you look at that cash sheet and you're wondering where the money's going to come from, but you got to have faith in that. It's worked out for us so far. So
Hmm. Excellent. Thank you. Well, how do you instill the help versus sell mindset in your team so that they are focused on the right things?
So part of that is, I think, finding the right people, which can be very difficult because, any of us can think that we're awesome at finding the right people, but you never really know until you start finding people, and you might find the wrong ones and you have to move. But, for me, it's living it. So again, it goes to, this can't be a strategy. It's got to be the way you operate, not just in your business, but the way you operate in your life. It's got to be the way that you operate with your team. Whereas, regardless of how much someone does for the company, or how much time they put in, or how quote unquote important or key their role may or may not appear to be, you have to be helping them the same way, right? So when you think about that, the sell there is, well, if I help you, you give more to the business. That can't be the way that you operate either with your team. So that's part of modeling that. I'm going to help you. I appreciate you. I'm going to build you up regardless of what your role is, and regardless of how much time you do or do not put in. Because we have a lot of people who work with us that are teachers, so they work part time with us. And so I think living that, and then also letting them see the fact that you're going to make decisions based on that foundational purpose. Let them know and let them see when you choose to take put out a smaller invoice because it's the right thing to do, versus, going in for the kill and getting the biggest you can. And let them know that it's okay to walk away from things like that. If someone on the team makes a move that goes the opposite way, you have to have a conversation, explain why that maybe isn't why we do, what we look to do, and then find out, what it was that made them make that move, and adjust. So it's not easy, especially if your team has people that have been in other roles, especially like if they've been in sales and marketing roles. A lot of times they're looking for, it's a different type of ROI and a different type of metrics that they're looking at. So that can be sort of those bad habits to break. I've found, our team, the majority of our team are teachers, which are already helping every day. That's what they do. That's what's in their heart. They're driven. So I think I've got a little bit easier than most, probably, in that sense, because I'm speaking to a different type of person when they come on a team. But I think it really comes back to, you have to model it. We talk about teachers all the time, same thing, just like us as parents, right? If we want students to do things, if we want our kids to do things, you have to model the behavior that you want, because otherwise you're hypocritical and you're not modeling what you want from them. So it's the same thing when it comes to your team.
Mm-hmm. Well, at some point, we need to ask for the sales, right? So how do we do that? A lot of us don't like to ask for the sales.
Yeah. So I think what we have found is, when you're focused on helping, eventually they tell you when they need the sale. And so I think the problem, and why that's so difficult for so many, is because we are looking for the sale. We are asking questions because we want to get to the sale. But then when we get there, we know that that's why we ask those questions. So now we're there. And I think it's disingenuous. If you're actually not worried about the sale, you're actually truly, and it's not a strategy. It's rather the way that you run it. And you know that if I get off this call today and we don't get to the sale, it doesn't matter. My goal is actually to try and help you, or figure out how I can help you. And then you focus on that. And if that how I can is something that requires money, then that's where you go. If it's not, you have to be okay with getting off the phone, getting off the video call, walking on the meeting, saying, okay, I helped them. I'm going to follow up with them and make sure I can help them again. And eventually you can get to that sale. Now, I think another piece that sometimes makes it tough to ask for sales, you also have to believe in what you're doing. When you know what you're doing is actually going to help them, and you know the reason behind it and your mission behind it is real, and that you're trying to help, and you know it's going to have an impact, it's a lot easier to ask for the sale. And then you add that to, if you know it's perfectly okay if they say no, because you're going to help them in some way, whatever you can, then it's okay too. So when you kind of take that pressure off yourself, it's a lot easier to ask for that sale. Now I'll go back to what I said earlier too. If you build the brand and build a relationship, a lot of times we don't have to ask for the sale. The sale comes to us, and they come to us and ask. Now we might have to tell them what that request or what that idea costs, but it's a lot easier to do when you have a relationship already. And I think too many of us, we wait to build a relationship until after they've purchased, and then we're like, okay, now I can put in the time and effort. Now I can invest in this client, versus I'm investing in our entire community because I never know who's going to need help and then who's going to be willing to work with us. And so I think it's a few different things, but you have to believe in what you're doing and why you're doing it. And you have to make sure that you're willing to not go in for the sale if it's not the right thing for that client.
Yes. Yeah, that's so very important. It took me a little while to understand, but then I understand that now, how that is so important in helping your clients with their needs rather than focusing on the sell. Helping
Yeah.
others, and then just like you said, then the sales will come.
Yep.
Yeah, building
And you never know if
relationships.
that potential client that you did not close because you chose to help them in a small way today, in a year or in 2 years, they could be the big one that comes
Yeah.
because they feel like it, or they could be the person that talks to someone else, and that's the big one that comes. We have a lot of business that's referral. And we're not out asking for referrals. It's just people who might be in a conversation with someone else, and they say, "Oh, well, you should talk to these guys. Oh, well, you're looking at mastery learning. You should definitely talk to Teach Better," and we get that call. But we've had plenty who come back who have been, people that we've talked with, people that we've helped, and that we've put a lot into. And it's not till 6 months later, a year later, because so much of sales is not necessarily about your pitch, about locking them in. It's about timing, right? And if you're continuously helping and you're consistent that way, it's going to line up at some point. And so you just have to, again, have that belief in what you're doing and why you're doing it, and your best fit, and they'll find you.
Fantastic. Well, how do we get started with all this, Jeff? What are the first steps?
Of building the help versus sell. For me, it's, I guess the very first step is sort of erase. I don't know if erasing or rethinking, rewiring your mind, however you want to say it, to what your purpose actually is. And that your job is not sales. Your job is not to sell someone. Your job is to help them. Now, that might require you to sell them something, but if you're actually helping them, they just have to purchase it at that point. And then your sale changes from trying to figure out how to say the right words so they say yes, to just figuring out how to make what they need happen for them. That's a very different and much easier conversation. So that's the first step. The second step is figuring out, if you're going to build it the way we do, it's okay, we have to create content. So what kind of content do we need to create? Both, like what medium are we going to create it on? Is our audience, our target audience, are they typically going to be reading blog posts? Do they want videos? Do they want white papers? Do they want ebooks? Do they want tools they can download and use right away? Do they need webinars? Do they need a podcast? Whatever it might be. And then you have to figure out, okay, now what do they need? What are they actually struggling with? And what can we help them with? What do we have expertise in? So we can start creating that content to build that. And then start building your email list. I'm still a huge believer in email lists. They've been around forever. I call it the original social media. I think a lot of people refer to that way. But I always look at social media channels seem to change all the time, but everyone has the same email they've had for 12 years. My mom still has her AOL.com email, right? So build your email list, but continue creating that content consistently. So figuring out who you're talking to, where you're talking to them at, what you're going to say to them. And then you got to really get serious about what's your capacity. What's your capacity for how often you can create this content and communicate with your audience, so that you can stay consistent. And people always ask, well, I feel like I need to be blogging once a week, right? And I don't know if I can. My thing is, all right, if you can do it twice a month, that's fine. That might not be your end goal, but if that's where you're at now and you can do that consistently, that's what you should be doing. If you can only do one a month consistently, that's fine. It just needs to be consistent. Now we're continuing to push to be, I want 1 billion blogs a day and everything like that. I have these ideas that I want to put out so much content, create it. But we started slow. We've built up. We have a lot of guest writers that write with us. We have a decent sized team now that writes. So you have to figure out where you're talking to people, who you're talking to, where you're talking to them at, what you're going to say, what kind of value you're going to provide to them, and then how often are you doing that? How often can you do that? And then you start building. You got to look at your tools for, okay, where am I going to put this at? And then you just start going. You have to start creating that content and pushing it out. Obviously, there's a lot more that goes into that, but that's sort of the simplified steps, I'd say.
Mm-hmm. Great. That's great. Well, is there anything else that you would like to share with the audience, especially if entrepreneurs are feeling stuck in their business, or anything you'd like to share about yourself? We have a little bit more time before.
Yeah, sure. I mean, Yeah, when I think about someone getting stuck, I think one of the easiest ways to get unstuck, and I say easiest, but it's never easy. But a tactic for getting unstuck, and I think a key to it is to really get in very, very honest with yourself and having self-awareness of figuring out why are you stuck? What's holding you there? Is it something because you can't get over this hurdle, or a tool you can't figure out, or is it because you're not doing what you're supposed to be doing? Is it because you're following a path that you thought you were supposed to be on because that's what your parents thought, or what your friends did, or what society says you're supposed to do? Or are you actually doing something and chasing something that you actually believe in and that you want to do? I think it's really important to get very self-aware and be self-aware. I also think it's very important to know that just because it's your dream does not mean it's what you're supposed to do. Because you can have a dream and not be good at it. My dream was to be a rock star, be a musician. There's a lot of reasons why that can't work out. One of which is it's really difficult to do, but I also didn't have the skill. I didn't have the talent. And honestly, I didn't have the right drive to build that skill to exactly where I wanted to be. So I found other ways, and I figured out that, I loved helping other artists. And so I built a record label. So I stayed in there. And then when that didn't work, I felt, man, I love music. I'm a musician. I'm an artist. This is what I'm supposed to be. What am I going to do? Well, then I figured out through helping businesses with web design, SEO, and marketing and stuff that I really enjoyed just helping people chase their dreams. And then now working in this, the same type of thing is I'm not working with businesses. I don't know as much about education. I'm learning, but I love, to help people just be better at what they want to be. However, I can help support that, whether I'm talking about my teammates and the people that work with me, or if I'm talking about the educators that we're working with, the administrators we're working with, or all the way into the students that they then impact. I found out that it wasn't that I loved performing. It wasn't that I loved music. It wasn't any of these things. It's that I love helping people grow and help people be better and help people be happy, right? And if people are better at what they do, they're happier. And so you have to really figure out what is it that you really want to do. Like, what are you really trying to build? Are you building your business because you want a fancy car and you want the nice watches? Or are you building a business because there's a purpose behind what you do? And your purpose doesn't have to be like, oh, rescuing the world and, ending hunger. It can simply be, I want to help people understand their IT systems better. I want business owners to not struggle with accounting. It doesn't matter what it is that you're trying to do. Like, figure out, is that why you're doing it? Or is it just because you're chasing money? And is that really where you're at? Is that where you're supposed to be? Are you good at it? Is it really valuable? Get really, really self-aware with yourself. And I think you'll figure out why you might be stuck. And then you can start figuring out, okay, now how do I overcome that? How do I beat that? How do I get unstuck now and go from there? So.
Yeah. Like you, we may have many gifts. We may be blessed with one gift or many. And just like you said, it's focus on the one.
Yeah.
Yeah, I can see where yours have brought you to a point where you are now.
Yeah, and it's sometimes you have all these gifts and you focused on certain ones to figure out, oh, they all kind of work together here.
Yeah.
Right. And this is where, where you're supposed to be. And I always say that, or at least I've been saying for the last 6 years of this business, after about a year and a half or so, I figured out, I'm like, all that other stuff was leading me here. Because there's so many times where we pull from my background, whether it was in the marketing thing, whether it was about, mistakes made at the record label, whether it was when I was in a band and marketing our band and our music, when I was working in the fast food restaurant industry, when I, was running a bar, like all these different pieces that I've been able to pull. We do that with all of our team. The educators that have worked multiple subjects, multiple grade levels, multiple different positions, like it's the same thing there. You've done all these things and you find what brings you together to do what you're doing now the best you can. But I think it all comes back, as far as getting unstuck, is figuring out, why am I unstuck, and getting really serious with yourself, and then figuring out, okay, what's the actual best way out of here. So yeah, that made me think that sometimes we can self-sabotage ourselves. And if we appreciate our gifts and we're grateful for what we have done and where we have gotten to, we need to pat ourselves on the back, keep moving forward. Yeah, absolutely. We definitely need to focus. Don't focus on your weaknesses. Gary Vee always says, double down, triple down on your strengths, and you go from there. Exactly. So that's it. It's key. Yeah. Well, Jeff, you have a free gift to offer listeners. What is that? Would you like to share I'd love to offer. Yeah, one of my favorite things that I get to do is one-on-one coaching. We have a program called Connected Coaching that has a couple of different tiers of coaching, and that tier 3 is one-on-one coaching. And then I'll start with start of it with a 30-minute call to figure out if things make sense, and to help you get over a hump over something, help you get through something, help you get unstuck maybe. So I'd love to, anyone who's watching and listening that maybe is feeling that way, or just has anything else they want to talk about. They just want to bounce ideas, or they want to try and plan a new launch, or maybe they're just starting the business and they're not even sure where to start, or they want to make sure they're covered legally or whatever it might be. Anything I can help with. I'd love to offer anyone who's watching and listening 30 minutes with me just to do a one-on-one coaching call and go from there. There'll be no expectation of you continuing and doing coaching. My thing is, if hopefully I can help you, hopefully I learn about a cool new business you got going on and find some way to help support you. So if that interests anyone, you can just email me straight directly, just Jeff, Jeff, @teachbetter.com. Just tell me Cindy sent you, and we'll be on our way. So.
Wonderful. Thank you. And Jeff's information is also below this video, and you can check out all his information and Facebook and his website, and buttons below for his free gift. So wonderful news that you shared with us, Jeff. Thank you so much.
Well, thanks for having me, Cindy. It was a pleasure. Appreciate it.
Yeah, and you work with a lot of students. So we've got students, entrepreneurs, those who may be just starting a business, those who may be seasoned and feeling stuck. So your content was just fabulous today.
Well, thank you. I appreciate that a lot.
Thank you. And you're a great example to everybody, to where you've been and where you came from and what you're doing now. Just a blessing to the world. So thank you.
Well, thank you.
So
making me blush over here.
Yeah, that's great. So everyone, thank you for joining us, and we hope to hear about your success, or if you need help, please let us know how things are going, and we will see you again soon. Thank you very much. Bye for now.